Nearly all 50 states have lifted their coronavirus restrictions, but the newfound freedom comes with a warning. Even as cases have continued to fall in recent weeks, experts worry that the Delta variant could slow or even reverse that trend. Officials are pushing eligible Americans to get vaccinated. The pace has slowed to a rate that would leave the nation short of President Biden's 4th of July goal. You'll recall he's aiming to get 70% of adults at least partially vaccinated by that date. Nikki Battiste is tracking the latest.
Tonight, our summer of freedom may be in jeopardy as the Delta variant spreads across the U.S. Cases now nearly doubling every 2 weeks.
And it tends to look like it might even be more serious in making people ill.
Delta, first found in India, is now responsible for almost 10% of new COVID cases here in the U.S.
Now we know that the Delta virus is actually anywhere from 50 to 60% more infectious than was the B117. So this is surely a grave concern.
Epidemiologist Michael Osterholm says those most at risk, anyone with only one dose or unvaccinated, like kids under 12 and regions where vaccination rates lag.
When you look at the South, where there is a lot of vaccine hesitancy, how concerned are you about the South?
I'm very concerned about the South. We have over 100 counties in this country right now that have less than 20% of the residents vaccinated. Those are time bombs waiting to happen. This virus will find you if you're not vaccinated.
As the Biden administration pushes to get 70% of Americans vaccinated with at least one dose by Independence Day, at least 20 states are now banning so-called vaccine passports, documents which could have encouraged people to get a shot. And tonight, 45 states and Washington, D.C. are now fully open, but not every American is ready to celebrate.
I'm still skeptical, but only because there's just too many people that are not vaccinated and we can get more variants.
Moderna says the Biden administration agreed to buy 200 million additional doses of its COVID vaccine today, and that the shots could be used as boosters or for children under 12 if the FDA gives emergency use authorization. Lana?
Nikki, thank you. For more, let's bring in emergency medicine physician, Dr. Anand Swaminathan. Dr. Swaminathan, great to have you with us again. So the 7-day moving average of people receiving the first dose of coronavirus vaccine is down to just around 333,000. To reach President Biden's 4th of July goal, we would need to double that rate. At this point, what more can be done to actually get people vaccinated?
I wish we had a good answer for that. There's some good news with vaccines so far, but you're right. We are really lagging behind when we see that we've got somewhere between 15 and 20 states that are at that 70% mark. That's great, but that means there's a lot of parts of the country that are lagging behind. And it's not just that cases are leveling off now. When we look across the country, they seem to be leveling off. But in those states that are under-vaccinated, we're seeing cases start to really tick up. Places like Missouri, Louisiana, Utah, Nevada, they're having huge rises in cases, and this is ahead of Delta becoming the predominant variant that is going on in the U.S., so that could see even further spikes. I think that a lot of the things that have been put in place in certain states have limited people's desire to get vaccinated at this point. Things like vaccine passports could have been a real help. The fact that we have reopened because across the country numbers are down has hurt in individual areas where numbers aren't down and vaccine rates aren't high enough. And so I think we need to give a little bit more of a push. I think increasing access, encouraging people to use things like free transportation that have been put in place to get vaccines, to use the employment benefits for days off to get your vaccine, to use childcare. Those are going to be important moves. But I think the individual states need to do a little bit more here to push people towards this, especially in those under-vaccinated areas.
Yeah, sounds like we also need to be reporting more on individual states and areas and how they're doing given their vaccination rates, as opposed to these national averages, which, as you say, can give a false impression. Dr. Swaminathan, I want to talk to you about children, because a lot of them are already on summer break, and parents are starting to think about the new school year and the risks that this virus could pose to kids under the age of 12. Where do pediatric vaccine trials stand right now, and when do you think we may see a vaccine for younger children?
I think it's unlikely that we see anything before September, and even September is a little bit hopeful. I know that Pfizer has said that they plan to have data available by September. They're hoping to kind of push for an emergency use authorization by then, which would be fantastic to get that going right as most schools are starting up again, because that is a huge age group, that 5 to 12 age group. We can't really do anything to speed up that process. Right now, we really do have to be patient and wait. What we can do, though, is to put logistics in place that as soon as that EUA comes through, anticipating that it will, that we are ready to get to that group of people, because it's a huge group and it can really boost our overall numbers. So making sure that we have ways to deliver vaccines to individual pediatricians' offices, that we are working with pediatricians to make sure that they are as educated as possible about this, because for a long time, the vaccines really have been only relevant to adults or maybe older kids. So let's make sure that we're really reaching out, getting that information to every pediatrician, working on maybe even having to relaunch some of those large sites that have been closing down in order to get kids vaccinated quicker. But we need to have all of that infrastructure in place so that when that EUA comes through, we can really get to kids quickly.
And remind us, would in the vaccine trials that are going on right now, would children be receiving the exact same doses that adults have already received?
In the 12 and up, they're receiving the same dose that the adults are. In the next age group down, it seems to be about a half dose or a half amount. And that still may vary as we get more data coming out. So it's going to be a reduced dose. And this has to do with body surface area and how big these kids are. I think it's important, and this is why it's important for us to get all that information so we know exactly what the right dose is, what adverse events are showing up. That's why we need to wait to collect more of that data.
Let's talk now about the Delta variant, because it's been labeled a variant of concern here in the U.S. Will our level of vaccinations be enough to stop another spike in cases? And it sounds like we should actually be asking, are you concerned about spikes in cases in areas that don't have, that are under the national average in terms of vaccination rates?
Yeah, that's exactly the crux of this. I'm confident that in areas with high vaccine rates, we'll be fairly okay with Delta. I live in New Jersey. I think that we're going to be okay because our vaccine rate is pretty high. But in those states that are under-vaccinated, this has a potential to really tear apart communities, to really tear through these areas. And we could see something like what's going on in the UK. Even worse, we could see something like what's going on in India. We can see health systems really overwhelmed, and that regionality to it is gonna really pop up. This is really a tale of two different systems, places where vaccines have been readily embraced and you have high numbers, and then places where you don't. And those places where you don't, this Delta variant is going to have a huge effect. We're talking about 10% of cases right now. That's going to probably pick up in the next couple of weeks, could become dominant within a month. And the only way or the best way to fight this is to get vaccinated. But that's going to take 5 to 6 weeks. If you have no vaccine today, it's going to take 5 to 6 weeks to be fully vaccinated, which is even more reason we need to start this. We need to start this 2 weeks ago, but at least get moving now. Get people to those vaccines as quickly as we possibly can to get them as protected as we possibly can.
That's a very good point, the 5 to 6 weeks before the vaccine is actually effective, because I do know that there are some people who are vaccine hesitant, but have been waiting to see sort of how other people have been responding to the vaccine. And it's important to hear, as you're talking about the Delta variant on our horizon, that reminder that that first vaccine is not sufficient for coverage. Remind us also the Delta variant and how that compares to that first wave of COVID that we saw here in the United States. How is it different?
Well, Delta does appear to be more contagious, and there's now emerging data telling us that it might be more severe. We might see sicker people as a result of this. We don't have enough information to say that part yet, but we do have enough information to say it is more contagious, which means, again, as bad as it was in March and April, we could see it being worse in specific areas in the country. And that's a true shame when we think about the fact that we now have protection available. We have a shield that we can get to that can protect us from this variant if only people will really be encouraged to do that. And you pointed out this hesitancy, people waiting to see how other people are doing. That wait is over. You have to start moving now. The time to get vaccinated really, like I said, is 2 weeks ago, but let's start moving now, knowing that it's going to take weeks before you're fully protected.
Dr. Anand Swaminathan, thank you for joining us, and thank you for all that you do.
Thank you.